The prison cafeteria erupted in cruel laughter as Victoria Reyes grabbed the old woman's tray and dumped the entire contents over her gray hair. Oatmeal dripped down Eleanor Chen's face. Coffee soaked through her orange jumpsuit. Victoria's crew howled with delight as their leader shoved the elderly inmate to the floor. "Welcome to my house, Grandma," Victoria snarled, planting her boot on Eleanor's chest. "You eat when I say you eat, you breathe when I say you breathe, and right now I say you lick my boots clean." The cafeteria watched in stunned silence. Guards looked away. No one moved to help. But what Victoria didn't know, what no one in Blackwater Women's Correctional Facility could possibly guess, was that the frail grandmother beneath her boot had spent 45 years training warriors, and she was about to remind everyone why they once called her the Iron Lotus. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this plays out. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. Now let's get back to Eleanor Chen and find out exactly who Victoria Reyes just picked a fight with. Eleanor felt Victoria's boot grinding into her chest. The oatmeal was still warm as it dripped into her eyes. She could hear the laughter bouncing off concrete walls. 300 women watched. Some laughed. Some looked away. A few newer inmates covered their mouths. Victoria pressed down harder. "I said lick my boots, old lady. You deaf or just stupid?" Eleanor's hands stayed flat on the cold floor. Her breathing remained even, controlled. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, out through the mouth for 6. The same pattern she had taught thousands of students over 4 decades. "I'm waiting," Victoria growled. Jade Santos stepped closer. Her gold tooth caught the fluorescent light. "Maybe she's having a stroke, boss. Old people just drop dead sometimes." More laughter erupted. Eleanor turned her head slightly. She counted 15 women in Victoria's immediate crew. Another dozen scattered at tables throughout the cafeteria. Guards had suddenly found their clipboards very interesting. "Remove your foot," Eleanor said quietly. The laughter died instantly. Victoria blinked. "What did you just say to me?" "I said remove your foot. Please." Victoria's face twisted into something ugly. She had run this cell block for 9 years. 9 years of absolute control. Women had been hospitalized for less than what this old lady had just done. "Please," Victoria repeated, her voice rising. Did this ancient relic just say please to me? She lifted her boot and slammed it down on Eleanor's stomach. Air rushed out of the old woman's lungs. Several inmates gasped. Maya Thompson, a young woman barely 24, turned away completely. "I'll tell you what, please gets you in here, Grandma." Victoria bent down until her face was inches from Eleanor's. "Please gets you hurt. Please gets you broken. Please gets you crying for your mama in the middle of the night." Eleanor looked directly into Victoria's eyes. For just a moment, the gang leader saw something that made her hesitate. A flicker. A warning. Like looking into the eyes of a snake before it strikes. But Victoria had survived 15 years behind bars by never showing weakness. She grabbed Eleanor by the collar and hauled her to her feet. The old woman weighed almost nothing. Victoria could feel bones beneath the thin fabric. "You know what I do to people who talk back to me?" Victoria asked loud enough for everyone to hear. "Jade, tell Grandma what I do." Jade stepped forward eagerly. "Last woman who mouthed off spent 3 weeks in the infirmary. They had to wire her jaw shut." Victoria smiled. "And that was just for looking at me wrong." She drew back her fist. Eleanor didn't move. The punch came fast and hard. Victoria had dropped men twice her size with that right hook. She had shattered cheekbones and broken noses with a single blow. Her fist met empty air. Eleanor had shifted maybe 2 inches to her left. The movement was so small that most inmates didn't even see it happen. One moment, Victoria's fist was flying toward the old woman's face. The next moment, it sailed harmlessly past her ear. Victoria stumbled forward, thrown off balance. Before she could recover, she felt something press against her chest. Not hard, just a gentle touch. The next thing Victoria knew, she was on her knees. She couldn't breathe. Her lungs had locked up. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Eleanor stood over her hands, clasped calmly behind her back. She wasn't even breathing hard. The cafeteria went completely silent. 300 women held their breath. Even the guards stopped pretending to look at their clipboards. "I asked you nicely," Eleanor said, her voice soft, but somehow carrying to every corner. "I asked you to remove your foot. I said please. My mother raised me to always say please." Victoria's crew stood frozen. They had never seen their leader on her knees. Jade's hand was halfway to the shiv hidden in her waistband, but something kept her from drawing it. Eleanor looked around the cafeteria slowly. Her eyes passed over every face, every potential threat. I don't want trouble. I'm 68 years old. I want to serve my time and go home to my garden and my cats. That's all. I want to eat my meals in peace and maybe teach a few people how to breathe properly. Victoria finally sucked in a breath. It came with a wheeze and a cough. She looked up at Eleanor with pure hatred. You're dead, she gasped. You hear me, dead? Eleanor sighed. Perhaps, but not today. She turned her back on Victoria Reyes. She turned her back on 15 armed gang members, and she walked calmly to the serving line to get a new tray. Victoria's crew parted for her like water around a stone. They didn't want to. They could feel Victoria's rage burning at their backs, but their feet wouldn't move. Something about how Eleanor walked told them that getting in her way would be a very bad idea. The server behind the counter was a heavy-set woman named Bernice who had worked at Blackwater for 22 years. She had seen riots and murders. She had watched a woman get stabbed 17 times in this very cafeteria. She had never seen anything like this. Same order? Bernice whispered. Eleanor smiled warmly. Yes, please. And if you have fresh coffee, I would appreciate it. Bernice poured a fresh cup with shaking hands. Eleanor took her new tray and walked to an empty table in the center of the cafeteria. Not against a wall, not near an exit, right in the middle where everyone could see her. She sat down and began to eat. Behind her, Victoria struggled to her feet. Jade and 2 others rushed to help, but Victoria shoved them away. Nobody saw this, Victoria hissed. Anyone who talks about it loses their tongue. But even as she said it, Victoria knew it was too late. 300 women had witnessed everything. By nightfall, every cell block would know. Jade leaned close. Boss, what do we do? The other gangs will smell weakness. Victoria's hands curled into fists. Find out everything about her. Where she came from. What she's in for. Who she was before. And then? Victoria's eyes never left Eleanor's back. Then I'm going to show her what happens when you embarrass me. I don't care if she's 68 or 168. When I'm done with her, they won't find the pieces. Rosa Martinez, one of Victoria's enforcers, pushed through the crowd. Her face was pale. Boss, you need to hear this. Not now, Rosa. It's about the old woman. I just talked to someone in processing. Victoria's jaw tightened. What about her? Rosa swallowed hard. Her name is Eleanor Chen. She owned 4 martial arts schools in California, 45 years. She trained cops, military special forces. They called her the Iron Lotus. The color drained from Jade's face. Iron Lotus, I've heard that name before. My cousin in Oakland said there was this old Chinese lady who took out 6 Norteños who tried to rob her school, by herself, put 3 of them in the hospital. Victoria grabbed Rosa by the collar. Why didn't anyone tell me this before? Nobody knew. Her file just says tax fraud. First-time offender. Nothing about any of this. Victoria released Rosa and turned to stare at Eleanor, who was calmly eating her eggs like nothing had happened. The old woman cut each piece into small bites. She dabbed at her mouth with her napkin after every few bites. She looked like she was having tea at a country club. Doesn't matter, Victoria said finally. I don't care if she's Bruce Lee's grandmother. Nobody makes me look weak. Nobody. But boss, if she really is what they say... I said it doesn't matter, Victoria's voice echoed across the cafeteria. Several inmates flinched. Eleanor didn't even look up. Get me everyone. Every favor I'm owed. Every alliance we've got. I want this handled by the end of the week. Jade hesitated. Everyone, even the daughters. Everyone. The daughters hate us. Remember what happened with their leader's sister? Then offer them something they can't refuse. Territory, product, whatever it takes. Dee. Victoria's eyes burned with cold fury. That old woman just made the biggest mistake of her life, and I'm going to make sure it's her last. 2 hours later, Eleanor sat on her bunk in cell 42. She carefully organized her few belongings. 3 pairs of socks, 2 extra jumpsuits, a worn copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, a photograph of 2 cats, 1 orange and 1 black. Her cellmate Maya sat on the bottom bunk with her knees pulled to her chest. She stared at Eleanor like she had witnessed a miracle. Is it true? Maya finally asked. What they're saying about the cafeteria, Eleanor smoothed out her blanket. What are they saying? They're saying you dropped Victoria with 1 touch. They're saying you're some kind of ninja grandma. Eleanor chuckled. Ninja grandma, I like that. My students used to call me Iron Lotus, but ninja grandma has charm. Maya's eyes went wide. Iron Lotus. That was your fighting name. It wasn't a fighting name. I don't fight. I teach. Eleanor finished arranging her belongings and sat down. Fighting is what people do when they've run out of options. Teaching is what you do so people don't run out of options. But you did fight Victoria. No, I redirected her energy and applied pressure to a specific point that temporarily disrupted her breathing. That's not fighting. That's physics. Maya shook her head. Lady around here, that's fighting. And fighting Victoria means war. I didn't start anything. She poured food on my head. That's what she does to new fish. Everyone knows that. You're supposed to take it. Apologize. Beg. That's how you survive. Eleanor looked at Maya with something like sadness. Is that what you did? Maya looked away. I did what I had to do. And how did that work out for you? The silence said everything. Maya's jumpsuit couldn't hide the faded bruises on her arms. Her left eye still had discoloration from a black eye that hadn't fully healed. She was 24 and looked 40. Victoria doesn't forget, Maya said quietly. She doesn't forgive. Once you're on her list, you stay there. How long have you been here? 18 months, 3 more years on a drug charge, possession with intent. I was holding stuff for my boyfriend. He walked free, I got 5 years. Eleanor nodded slowly. She had heard stories like Maya's 1,000 times. Young women who made bad choices for worse men. What kind of man lets someone he loves take the fall for him? Maya's voice cracked. I thought he loved me. He said he'd wait. Said we'd be together when I got out. 3 months in, he stopped answering my calls. 6 months in, I heard he was with someone else. Someone younger. And now I'm just trying to survive. Maya wiped her eyes. Which is why I don't understand what you did. You could have just taken it. Let Victoria have her moment. In a few weeks, she would have forgotten about you. Eleanor reached across and took Maya's hand. Let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. There are 2 kinds of people in this world. Those who let others define who they are, and those who define themselves. Victoria wanted me to be a victim. She wanted me to be afraid. If I had given her that, I would have stopped being Eleanor Chen. I would have become just another broken woman in an orange jumpsuit. But now she's going to kill you. Maybe, or maybe she'll learn that some people can't be broken. Either way, I'll still be me when it's over. The cell door suddenly clanged open. Both women jumped. Officer Williams stood in the doorway. She was a heavy woman with tired eyes. Chen? Warden wants to see you? Maya's face went pale. Already? Officer Williams ignored her. Let's go, Chen. Eleanor rose calmly. Of course. As she walked past Maya, she squeezed the young woman's shoulder. Don't worry, everything is going to be fine. Maya watched her go, not believing a word. The walk to the warden's office took them through 3 security checkpoints. Eleanor observed everything with quiet attention. She noted which guards seemed alert and which seemed bored. She counted the security cameras. She memorized the hallway layouts. Warden Patricia Henderson was a sharp-faced woman in her early 60s. Silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She had run Blackwater for 15 years. Sit down, Henderson said. Eleanor sat with perfect posture, spine straight, hands in her lap. Henderson studied her. Do you know why you're here? I imagine it has something to do with breakfast. Victoria Reyes filed a complaint. She says you attacked her without provocation. She says you used some kind of weapon. She says you threatened to kill her entire crew. And you believe her. Henderson leaned back. I believe Victoria Reyes is a convicted murderer who has spent 15 years manipulating the system. She's responsible for at least 6 deaths we know of, and probably twice that many we don't. She runs a drug operation worth $500,000 a year. She would say anything to regain control of a situation that has clearly slipped beyond her grasp. So you don't believe her? I didn't say that. Even liars sometimes tell the truth. Henderson opened a folder. What I want to know is who you really are, Mrs. Chen. Your file says you're a 68-year-old first-time offender. Tax fraud. Should have gone to minimum security. Got placed here due to overcrowding. Retired small business owner. No history of violence. No gang affiliations. All accurate. But it doesn't explain how a retired small business owner incapacitated the most dangerous inmate in this facility without throwing a single punch. Eleanor considered her answer carefully. I owned martial arts schools. 4 of them. 45 years. I trained police officers, military personnel, security professionals. Before that, I trained in Hong Kong under masters whose names you wouldn't recognize. Henderson's eyebrows rose. You're a martial artist? I'm a teacher who knows how to defend herself. That's quite a bit more than defending yourself. Guards who reviewed the security footage said they've never seen anything like it. One of them used the word supernatural. There's nothing supernatural about it. Just training, practice, discipline. Anyone can learn what I know if they're willing to put in the work. Henderson was silent for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. Well, this is going to make my job interesting. I've been trying to figure out how to deal with Victoria Reyes for 15 years. Maybe you're exactly what this prison needs. Eleanor's expression didn't change. I didn't come here to solve your problems, Warden. I came here to serve my sentence and go home. Of course, but life gives us opportunities we didn't ask for. Shh, shh. Henderson stood and walked to her window. Victoria controls Cell Block C through fear. She makes my life difficult. She moves drugs and weapons and violence like she's running a corporation. Until this morning, no one ever challenged her authority and walked away. I'm not interested in challenging anyone's authority. That may be true, but Victoria doesn't see it that way. Neither will the other gangs. You've upset a very delicate balance, Mrs. Chen. Henderson turned back to face Eleanor. Her voice dropped lower. There's something else you should know. I received a call 30 minutes ago from the California Department of Corrections. Apparently you have friends in high places. Eleanor's expression flickered. Just barely. Friends? A retired Marine colonel named James Morrison contacted the governor's office this morning. Said he heard you'd been placed in general population here at Blackwater. Said it was a mistake that needed to be corrected immediately. Said you trained his entire unit before their deployment to Afghanistan. Saved lives. Jim always was dramatic. He's not the only one who called. I've had inquiries from the LAPD, the San Francisco Police Department, 3 different federal agencies, and a woman who claims to be a former student of yours who now works for the Secret Service. Henderson shook her head. Who exactly are you, Mrs. Chen? I told you, I'm a teacher. Teachers don't have the Secret Service making phone calls on their behalf. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. For 45 years, I taught people how to protect themselves and others. Some of those people went on to serve their communities, their country. They remember what I gave them, that's all. That's not all. That's a network. That's power. That's something Victoria Reyes doesn't know about. And I'd prefer to keep it that way. Henderson sat back down at her desk. She laced her fingers together and studied Eleanor with new eyes. I could transfer you out of here, minimum security, protective custody, 1 phone call, and you'd be somewhere safe. No. No, Mrs. Chen, you have 30 dangerous women planning your murder right now. Why would you possibly want to stay? Eleanor stood slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the prison yard below. Women in orange jumpsuits moved through their daily routines. Some exercised. Some sat in groups talking. Some walked alone with empty eyes. Because of them, Eleanor said quietly. Those women down there. Most of them have never had anyone teach them that they have value. That they're worth protecting. That they can be strong without being cruel. That's not your responsibility. No, it's not. But I've spent my entire life teaching people who had nowhere else to turn. The scared ones, the lost ones, the ones everyone else had given up on. Eleanor turned back to face Henderson. Victoria Reyes rules through fear because that's all she knows. That's all anyone ever taught her. But fear is a weak foundation. It crumbles the moment someone refuses to be afraid. You think you can change things here in 5 years? I think I can try, and trying is all any of us can do. Henderson was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the craziest. Maybe both. She pressed a button on her desk. Officer Williams will escort you back to your cell, but Mrs. Chen know this. Whatever happens next, you brought it on yourself, and whatever protection your friends might offer from the outside won't help you in here. In here, you're on your own. Eleanor smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind grandmothers give when their grandchildren worry too much. I've always been on my own, Warden. That's never stopped me before. She walked out without waiting for a response. The walk back to Cell Block C felt different. Word had spread through the prison with the speed of wildfire. Inmates stopped talking when Eleanor passed. Some nodded with respect they had never shown anyone. Others pressed against walls, giving her wide berth. A few looked at her with something like hope. But Eleanor noticed other looks too. The calculating stares of gang leaders, wondering if they could use this situation. The nervous glances of Victoria's crew members scattered throughout the corridors. Watching. Waiting. Reporting. She was halfway to her cell when a voice called out from behind. Hey you, old lady? Eleanor turned. A young woman approached. Hispanic. Maybe 19 or 20. Thick eyeliner and a scar that ran from her ear to her chin. She wore her jumpsuit sleeves rolled up, showing tattoos that Eleanor recognized as cartel-affiliated. You're the one who dropped Victoria. I'm Eleanor. I didn't ask your name. The young woman stopped a few feet away. Her posture was aggressive, but her eyes held something else. Curiosity, maybe respect. I'm Carmen. Las Diablas. You know who we are. I know. Then you know we don't usually talk to outsiders. But what you did in there, that was something. Carmen glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Victoria's calling in every favor she's got, putting together an army. She's scared, and scared Victoria is dangerous Victoria. Why are you telling me this? Carmen's jaw tightened. Because Victoria killed my cousin 3 years ago, made it look like suicide. Everybody knows, but nobody can prove it. I've been waiting for someone to knock that bitch off her throne, didn't think it would be someone's abuela. I'm not trying to knock anyone off anything. Doesn't matter what you're trying to do. Matters what you did. You showed everyone that Victoria can be touched, that she can fall. That's going to have consequences. Eleanor studied the young woman carefully. Behind the hard exterior, she saw something familiar. Pain. Loss. The desperate need for justice that the system would never provide. What was your cousin's name? Carmen blinked. The question had caught her off guard. What? Your cousin, the one Victoria killed. What was her name? Maria Santos. Carmen's voice cracked slightly on the name. She was only 22, had a daughter waiting for her on the outside. Little girl named Sophia, never got to see her mama again. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be careful. Carmen stepped closer and lowered her voice even further. Victoria's meeting with the Daughters of Chaos tonight. She's offering them half her drug territory in exchange for bodies. That's 20 more women who'll be coming for Itzkio. Add that to her own crew and the others she's recruiting. You're looking at 40, maybe 50 people who want you dead. Why does it matter to you if I live or die? Carmen was quiet for a moment. When she answered, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because if you can beat Victoria, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. Maybe things can change. Maybe my cousin didn't die for nothing. She stepped back and her hard mask slipped back into place. Watch your back, abuela, and if you need help, Las Diablas, remember those who remember us. She walked away without looking back. Eleanor watched her go, processing this new information. 50 people, an alliance of gangs united against one common enemy. The odds were getting worse by the hour. She continued toward her cell, her mind already working through possibilities. 45 years of training had taught her many things, but perhaps the most important lesson was this. Numbers mattered less than unity, and unity crumbled when built on fear. Victoria's alliance was built on fear and promises. Fear of Victoria's retribution if they refused. Promises of rewards if they succeeded. But fear and greed were weak foundations. They created followers, not believers. Mercenaries, not warriors. Eleanor needed to find the cracks. The tensions, the old grudges and new resentments that simmered beneath the surface. She needed to turn Victoria's greatest strength into her greatest weakness. But first, she needed information, and she knew exactly where to get it. The prison library was on the second floor of the East Wing. Eleanor had noticed it during her intake tour. More importantly, she had noticed the woman who ran it. Mrs. Patterson had worked at Blackwater for 20 years. She had white hair, kind eyes, and the quiet authority of someone who had seen everything and judged nothing. In Eleanor's experience, librarians in places like this knew things. They heard things. They saw things. And they rarely shared what they knew unless asked properly. Eleanor found her shelving books in the philosophy section. Mrs. Patterson. The librarian turned. Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. You're the one from this morning, Eleanor Chen. You know my name. Everyone knows your name now. Mrs. Patterson set down the book she was holding. I've worked here 20 years, never seen anyone do what you did. I'm not proud of it. No, you should be. Victoria Reyes has terrorized this prison since before I started. Guards won't touch her. Administration won't touch her. She's untouchable, or she was. Mrs. Patterson gestured to a small reading area with worn chairs. Sit. You didn't come here to browse. Eleanor sat. I need information. I figured. About Victoria. About everyone. The gangs, the alliances, the history. If I'm going to survive what's coming, I need to understand the landscape. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Eleanor with eyes that had seen too many women broken by this place, too many dreams destroyed, too many lives ended. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why not just request protective custody? With what happened this morning, they'd grant it in a heartbeat. You could serve your sentence in safety, go home to whatever life you had before." "Because I'm tired of watching people be afraid." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Eleanor leaned forward. "I've spent my whole life teaching people to stand up for themselves. Teaching them that they don't have to be victims, that they have power they don't even know about. I can't do that from protective custody." "You can't do that if you're dead either." "Then I won't die." Mrs. Patterson laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Just like that, you won't die." "I've been not dying for 68 years. I'm fairly good at it by now." Something shifted in Mrs. Patterson's expression. The cynicism gave way to something else. Hope, maybe. Or maybe just the desperate wish to believe that someone finally could change things. "There are 6 major gangs in Blackwater," she said slowly. "Victoria's crew runs Cell Block C. The Daughters of Chaos control D Block white supremacists, which are real bad business. Las Diablas have E Block cartel connections better organized than the others. The Sisters run F Block African-American gang, been at war with the Daughters for years. Then you've got the Asians in G Block and the mixed crew in H Block. Victoria is trying to unite them against me." "She's trying, but those groups have been killing each other for decades. Getting them to work together would be like getting cats to march in formation. What would it take? A common enemy they hate more than they hate each other. Right now, that's you." Eleanor processed this information. "What are the fault lines?" "The tensions. Between Victoria and the Daughters, it's territory. Victoria promised them the East Yard last year, then reneged. They've been waiting for payback. Between the Daughters and the Sisters, it's race. Pure hatred goes back generations. Las Diablas stay neutral mostly, but they've got beef with Victoria over a drug deal gone wrong. 3 of their girls ended up dead." "Carmen's cousin." Mrs. Patterson's eyes sharpened. "You've been talking to Carmen." "She approached me, warned me about Victoria's alliance." "Carmen's dangerous. Don't trust her." "I don't trust anyone, but I listen to everyone." "Smart." Mrs. Patterson glanced toward the library entrance, making sure they were alone. "There's something else you should know. Something that's not common knowledge." "I'm listening." "Victoria has a daughter, on the outside, 16 years old, lives with Victoria's mother in Bakersfield. Victoria hasn't seen her in person for 9 years, but she calls every Sunday. That girl is the only thing in this world Victoria actually cares about." Eleanor filed this information away, not as a weapon, she would never threaten a child, but as insight into her enemy. Victoria Reyes was a mother. Somewhere beneath all that cruelty and violence, there was a woman who loved someone. "How do you know all this?" Mrs. Patterson smiled sadly. "I've been the librarian here for 20 years. Women come to me when they need to talk, when they need to confess, when they need someone who won't judge them. I know more secrets than anyone in this prison, including the guards, including the warden." "Why are you telling me?" "Because you're the first person in 20 years who might actually be able to use it, to change things, or you'll die trying, and at least someone tried." Mrs. Patterson stood up. "Be careful, Eleanor. Victoria's not stupid. She knows you're dangerous now. She won't come at you directly. She'll find your weakness and exploit it." "I don't have weaknesses." "Everyone has weaknesses. Yours is that you care." Mrs. Patterson began walking back to her shelving. "That young woman, Maya Thompson, your cellmate. Victoria knows about her, knows you've taken an interest in her. If I were you, I'd keep Maya very close, because if Victoria can't get to you directly, she'll go through anyone you care about." Eleanor felt a cold hand close around her heart. Maya, young, frightened, vulnerable Maya who had trusted her, who had looked at her with hope for the first time in 18 months. "Thank you," Eleanor said, already rising from her chair. "Don't thank me. Survive. Change things. That's the only thanks I need." Eleanor moved quickly through the corridors. Her calm exterior masked the urgency she felt inside. Maya was alone in their cell, unprotected. If Victoria had already identified her as a vulnerability, she could be in danger right now. She reached Cell Block C in record time. The inmates she passed barely registered her presence. Her focus was entirely on the cell at the end of the corridor. Their cell. The door was open. Eleanor's heart rate spiked. She controlled it immediately, falling into the breathing pattern that kept her centered. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out through the mouth for 6. She entered the cell. Maya was sitting on her bunk very still. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Jade Santos stood against the far wall, grinning. "Well, well," Jade said, "the ninja grandma returns." Eleanor assessed the situation in a fraction of a second. Jade was alone. No visible weapons, though she probably had a shiv hidden somewhere. Maya appeared unharmed, just frightened. This was a message, not an attack. "Get out," Eleanor said. Jade's grin widened. "Is that how you talk to guests? I was just having a nice conversation with your little friend here, telling her about what happens to people who align themselves with the wrong side. Maya has nothing to do with this. Leave her alone." "See, that's where you're wrong. Maya has everything to do with this now. You made her a target the moment you decided to sit with her at dinner, the moment you started talking to her like she was worth something." Eleanor took a step forward. "I said get out." "Or what? You'll do to me what you did to Victoria." Jade pushed off the wall and walked toward Eleanor. Her posture was aggressive, but her eyes held a flicker of fear she couldn't quite hide. "Go ahead, hit me. Give Victoria the excuse she needs to rally everyone against you. Show everyone you're exactly the threat she says you are." Eleanor didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Jade stopped a foot away, close enough to smell the cigarette smoke on her breath. "Victoria wants you to know something. She wants you to know that this isn't about you anymore. It's about everyone you care about, everyone you talk to, everyone you look at. They're all targets now." Jade smiled. "Starting with little Maya here, unless you do exactly what Victoria wants." "And what does Victoria want?" "Public apology, tomorrow morning, breakfast. You get on your knees in front of everyone and you beg Victoria for forgiveness. You admit that you got lucky. You admit that you're nothing. And then maybe, just maybe, Victoria lets your friends live." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. She could feel Maya's eyes on her back, could feel the young woman's fear like a physical weight. "Tell Victoria something for me," Eleanor said finally. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "Tell her that I don't make deals with people who threaten the innocent. Tell her that I've faced down worse than her and walked away. And tell her that if she comes for Maya or anyone else I care about, I will dismantle her organization piece by piece. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because bullies need to be stopped, and I've been stopping bullies for 45 years. Jade's smile faltered. "You're making a mistake, old woman." "No, I made a choice. There's a difference." Eleanor stepped aside and gestured toward the door. "Now get out of my cell and tell Victoria that if she wants to talk terms, she can come herself instead of sending messengers." Jade hesitated. For a moment it looked like she might say something else, might do something else, but something in Eleanor's eyes stopped her. She walked out without another word. The moment she was gone, Maya burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. She was here when I got back from dinner. She was waiting. She said if I screamed, she would cut my throat. She said you were going to get me killed. She said..." Eleanor sat down next to Maya and put an arm around her shoulders. "Shh, it's okay. You're safe now." "I'm not safe. None of us are safe." Maya looked up at Eleanor with red-rimmed eyes. "You should do it. The apology. Just get on your knees and say whatever she wants you to say. It's not worth dying over. It's not worth me dying over." "Yes, it is." "What?" Eleanor took Maya's hands in her own. They were still shaking. "Listen to me. Listen carefully. What Victoria wants isn't an apology. She wants submission. She wants to prove that everyone can be broken, that everyone can be controlled through fear. If I give her that, I won't just be surrendering myself. I'll be telling every woman in this prison that resistance is futile, that Victoria is invincible, that they should just accept whatever cruelty she decides to inflict." "But you're just one person." "So was Rosa Parks. So was Harriet Tubman. So was every person who ever stood up and said no when the whole world expected them to say yes." Eleanor squeezed Maya's hands gently. "I've lived a full life, Maya. 68 years. I've taught thousands of students. I've seen my schools grow and thrive. I've loved and lost and loved again. If I die tomorrow, I die knowing I made a difference. You're not going to die tomorrow." "Probably not. But if I do, I need to know that my death meant something, that it inspired someone to keep fighting. Can you do that for me, Maya? Can you keep fighting no matter what happens?" Maya was quiet for a long time. Tears still streamed down her face, but something was changing behind her eyes. Something was hardening into resolve. "Teach me," she whispered. "Teach me what you know. Teach me how to be strong." Eleanor smiled. It was the warmest smile Maya had ever seen. "Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., we start with breathing." That night, as the prison settled into uneasy silence, Eleanor lay on her bunk and thought about what was coming. Victoria was gathering an army, 40, maybe 50 women united by fear and greed. The largest coordinated attack in Blackwater's history, all focused on one 68-year-old woman who just wanted to serve her sentence in peace. She thought about her schools back in California, the empty buildings where she had taught thousands of students, the worn mats that still held the impressions of countless feet, the mirrors that had reflected so many transformations, so many moments of discovery when a frightened student realized they were stronger than they ever imagined. She thought about her cats, Hugo and Penelope, who were staying with her neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, until she got out. Did they miss her? Did they wonder where she had gone? Did they sit in the window every evening waiting for her to come home? She thought about the women in this prison, the Mayas and the Carmens and all the others who had never had anyone believe in them, who had been told their whole lives that they were worthless, disposable, meant for nothing but suffering. And she thought about Victoria Reyes, a woman who had turned her own pain into a weapon, who had climbed to power over the bodies of everyone she had hurt, who had a 16-year-old daughter in Bakersfield who probably dreamed of the day her mother would finally come home. Victoria wasn't evil. She was broken, and broken people broke other people because it was the only way they knew to feel powerful. But broken things could be fixed. Eleanor had spent her whole life fixing broken things. Broken students who became confident warriors. Broken communities that became strong neighborhoods. Broken spirits that became unbreakable wills. Maybe she could fix Victoria, probably not, but she could try. And trying, as she had told Warden Henderson, was all any of us could do. Somewhere in another part of the prison, Victoria Reyes sat in a darkened room, surrounded by representatives from 6 different gangs. Women who had spent years killing each other were now sitting at the same table, united by their hatred of one small old woman who had made the unforgivable mistake of refusing to be afraid. 3 days, Victoria said. "We hit her in 3 days. Everyone moves at once. No warning. No mercy. And when it's done, we divide up everything she could have been. Her reputation, her legend, whatever hope she gave to all those pathetic women who think she can save them." The other gang leaders nodded. Deals were struck. Alliances were formed. Plans were made. And in Cell 42, Eleanor Chen slept peacefully, dreaming of her cats and her garden and the thousands of students who carried her teachings in their hearts. The storm was coming. But storms had never frightened Eleanor Chen. She had been through worse. And she would stand as she had always stood in the center of the chaos, calm and certain and absolutely unbreakable. Maya woke at 4:47 a.m. to find Eleanor already standing in the center of their cell, her eyes closed. Her hands moving through the air in slow, deliberate patterns. The old woman's breathing was so quiet that Maya had to strain to hear it. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Again and again, a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. "You're awake," Eleanor said without opening her eyes. "Good. We begin now." Maya sat up on her bunk, rubbing sleep from her face. "It's not even 5 yet." The body learns best when the mind is still half dreaming. Stand up. Maya hesitated. Part of her wanted to pull the thin blanket over her head and pretend yesterday hadn't happened. Pretend Jade hadn't threatened her life. Pretend she wasn't now a target in a war she never asked to join. But another part of her, a part she had almost forgotten existed, remembered the look in Eleanor's eyes when she promised to teach her. That look said something Maya hadn't heard in 18 months. It said, "You matter." She stood up. "Good," Eleanor said, finally opening her eyes. "Now breathe with me. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out through the mouth for 6. This is the foundation of everything." Breathing, that's the big secret. Breathing is life. Control your breath, and you control your fear. Control your fear, and you control your body. Control your body, and no one can control you. Eleanor placed her hand on Maya's stomach. "From here, not your chest. Deep into your belly. Feel it expand." Maya tried. Her first breath was shallow, catching in her throat. "Again?" Eleanor said. "Slower." Maya tried again. A little better this time. "Again?" They practiced for 20 minutes. Just breathing. Maya's legs began to ache from standing still. Her mind kept wandering to Jade's threats, to Victoria's army, to all the terrible things that could happen in the next 3 days. "Your thoughts are scattered," Eleanor said. "I can see it in your shoulders. You're holding tension there because your mind won't be quiet." "How can my mind be quiet when people are planning to kill us?" "That's exactly when your mind must be quiet. Fear makes noise. It screams and shouts and drowns out everything else. But underneath the noise, there's always stillness. Find that stillness, and you'll find your power. I don't have any power. Eleanor smiled. You have more power than you know. Everyone does. They just forget how to access it. The cell door buzzed open. Morning count. Guards moved through the block, checking faces against their lists. Eleanor and Maya stepped into the corridor with the other inmates standing in the line that formed automatically. Maya felt eyes on her immediately. Victoria's crew was watching. Jade stood 3 cells down, arms crossed, a smirk on her face. Other inmates looked at Maya with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew she had become a target. But something felt different this morning. Maya stood a little straighter. Her breathing was a little steadier. 20 minutes of practice hadn't transformed her into a warrior, but it had given her something she hadn't felt in months: hope. After Count Eleanor guided Maya to the cafeteria. They walked side by side, and Maya noticed that other inmates gave them space. Not out of fear exactly, out of respect, or maybe just uncertainty about what Eleanor might do next. Don't look at them, Eleanor said quietly. Don't engage. Walk like you have somewhere important to be, and nothing can stop you from getting there. I don't have anywhere important to be. I'm in prison. Then imagine you do. The body follows what the mind believes. They got their trays and sat at the same table Eleanor had claimed the day before. Center of the cafeteria. No walls, no exits, right where everyone could see them. Victoria entered 5 minutes later. The gang leader moved slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone noticed her arrival. Her crew flanked her on both sides. Jade, Rosa, a dozen others whose names Maya didn't know, but whose reputations she did. Killers, enforcers, women who had ended lives for less than a disrespectful glance. Victoria's eyes found Eleanor immediately. The 2 women stared at each other across the crowded cafeteria. Neither blinked. Neither looked away. Then Victoria smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered prey and was savoring the moment before the kill. She walked toward Eleanor's table, her crew falling into formation behind her. Maya's hand started shaking. Eleanor reached over and placed her palm on top of Maya's fingers. Breathe, Eleanor whispered. Remember what I taught you. Victoria stopped at their table. She didn't sit. She just stood there, towering over them, her presence filling the space like a storm cloud. Morning, Grandma. Sleep well? Eleanor continued eating her eggs. Very well. Thank you. Enjoy it while you can. You've got 2 more nights. Victoria leaned down until her face was inches from Eleanor's. I've been thinking about your little speech yesterday, the one about how you've been stopping bullies for 45 years. Very inspiring. Really touched my heart. I'm glad. But here's the thing. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper that only Eleanor and Maya could hear. You're not in one of your little karate schools anymore. You're in my house. And in my house, I make the rules. I decide who lives and who dies. I decide who eats and who starves. And I've decided that you and your little friend here are going to suffer in ways you can't even imagine. Eleanor set down her spork. She looked up at Victoria with calm, steady eyes. You know what I've noticed about people who make threats? They usually do it because they're afraid. Confident people don't need to announce what they're going to do, they just do it. Victoria's eye twitched. You think I'm afraid of you. I think you're afraid of what I represent. The idea that your power isn't absolute, that someone can stand up to you and survive, that's terrifying to someone who has built their entire identity on fear. I'm going to enjoy watching you break. You're not the first person to say that to me. You won't be the last. But I'm still here, Victoria, and I'll still be here when you've exhausted yourself trying to destroy something you don't understand. Victoria straightened up. Her jaw was tight. Her hands had curled into fists at her sides. 2 days, she said. Then we'll see who's still standing. She walked away. Her crew followed. The cafeteria slowly returned to its normal noise level, but everyone had seen the exchange. Everyone knew that the countdown had officially begun. Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. How do you do that? How do you stay so calm? Practice. 50 years of practice. Eleanor picked up her spork and resumed eating. Also, I've learned that bullies feed on fear. Deny them that food and they start to starve. She's not going to starve. She's going to kill us. Maybe, but she won't break us, and sometimes that's all that matters. Yet, 2 hours later, Eleanor sat in the library with Mrs. Patterson. The older librarian had dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept well. It's worse than I thought, Mrs. Patterson said quietly. Victoria's alliance is bigger than anyone expected. She's not just uniting the gangs, she's recruiting independent operators. Women with grudges, women who owe her favors, women who just want to be on the winning side. How many? 50, maybe 60, could be more by tomorrow. Eleanor processed this information calmly. The odds were getting worse, but odds were just numbers. Numbers could be beaten with strategy. Tell me about the Daughters of Chaos, their leader specifically. Big Martha, real name Martha Kowalski, been here 22 years for killing her husband and his mistress. Runs the Daughters with an iron fist. Racist as they come, but practical when she needs to be. Why? Victoria promised them territory. What territory? The East Yard. Recreation time and drug distribution rights. And Victoria reneged on that promise. Last year, the Daughters were supposed to get exclusive access. Victoria gave it to Las Diablas instead. Big Martha's been waiting for revenge ever since. Eleanor nodded slowly. So Big Martha doesn't actually trust Victoria. She's only joining this alliance because she sees an opportunity. Or because she's afraid of what happens if she refuses. Fear and greed. That's what's holding this alliance together. Not loyalty, not shared purpose, just fear and greed. Eleanor leaned forward. What would happen if Big Martha thought Victoria was planning to betray her again? Mrs. Patterson's eyes widened. You're thinking of turning them against each other. I'm thinking of exposing what's already there. Victoria's alliance is a house of cards. All it needs is the right wind. That's dangerous. If Victoria finds out you're trying to sabotage her coalition, she'll move faster. Hit you before you can finish. Then I need to work quickly. The library door opened. Both women turned to see Carmen walking toward them with purposeful strides. The young Latina's face was tense. We need to talk, Carmen said without preamble. Now. Mrs. Patterson stood. I'll give you two some privacy. No. Carmen shook her head. You should hear this too. Everyone should hear this. She sat down across from Eleanor. There's been a development, a bad one. What happened? Victoria made a deal with the guards. Eleanor felt something cold settle in her stomach. What kind of deal? Officer Rodriguez and Officer Kim. They've been on Victoria's payroll for years, moving drugs, looking the other way when things happen. But now Victoria's asked them for something bigger. She wants them to make sure there are no guards in Cell Block C when the attack happens. Complete blackout, no interference. They agreed. Rodriguez did. Kim's still thinking about it. But even with just Rodriguez, that's 15 minutes of no response time. 15 minutes where anything can happen. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Corrupt guards changed everything. She had been counting on the threat of official intervention to limit the violence to force Victoria to act quickly and sloppily. Without that threat, the attack could be methodical, thorough, devastating. How do you know this, Pete? My cousin works in the laundry with Rodriguez's girlfriend. She heard them talking this morning. Carmen's jaw tightened. Victoria's not just trying to kill you anymore. She's trying to make an example, something so brutal that no one will ever challenge her again. When, tomorrow night, not 2 days from now, tomorrow. Eleanor felt the timeline compress around her like a closing fist. She had been counting on more time. Time to gather information, time to plant seeds of discord, time to prepare Maya and find allies. Now she had less than 36 hours. Thank you, Eleanor said. You're taking a big risk telling me this. Carmen shrugged. Like I said, if you can beat Victoria, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. She stood to leave, then paused. There's one more thing. Victoria knows about your daughter. Eleanor went very still. What? Your daughter, Jennifer, lives in Sacramento. Victoria's got people on the outside. She's been making calls. That's impossible. How would she know about Jennifer? Same way she knows everything, money and threats. Carmen's voice softened. I'm sorry, I know that's not what you wanted to hear. Eleanor's hands had begun to tremble. For the first time since arriving at Blackwater, she felt something other than calm certainty. She felt fear. Not fear for herself. Fear for her daughter, her only child. The little girl she had taught to walk and talk and defend herself. The woman who had grown up to become a doctor, saving lives, making her mother proud. What is Victoria planning? I don't know the details, just that she mentioned your daughter's name during the meeting last night, said something about leverage. Carmen walked toward the door. Watch yourself, Abuela. Victoria doesn't just want to win anymore. She wants to destroy you, everything you are and everything you love. She left. Eleanor sat in silence. Mrs. Patterson watched her with concern. Are you all right? No? Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. My daughter. She's not like me. She's a healer, not a fighter. If Victoria sends people after her, maybe you should consider protective custody after all. Make a deal with the warden. If Victoria can't get to you in here, maybe she'll leave your daughter alone. You don't understand, Victoria. Backing down won't satisfy her. She needs to make an example now. My surrender would just mean she could take her time, hurt my daughter, slowly make sure I felt every moment of it. Eleanor's hands stopped trembling. Her breathing steadied. No, the only way to protect Jennifer is to end this, permanently. How? By taking away everything Victoria has, her alliance, her reputation, her power, all of it. Eleanor stood up. I need to talk to Big Martha. Mrs. Patterson nearly choked. You can't be serious. Big Martha hates everyone who isn't white. She'll kill you just for approaching her. Maybe, but I have something she wants more than she hates me. What? Victoria's head on a plate. Getting to Big Martha required navigating territory that Eleanor had no right to enter. D-Block belonged to the Daughters of Chaos, and outsiders who wandered in without permission often didn't wander out. Eleanor walked calmly through corridors that felt increasingly hostile. White women with shaved heads and swastika tattoos watched her pass with barely concealed contempt. One of them spat at her feet. Another made a throat-cutting gesture. Eleanor kept walking. She found Big Martha in the D-Block common area holding court like a queen among her subjects. The gang leader was exactly what her name suggested. 6 feet tall, 250 pounds, arms like tree trunks covered in Celtic knot tattoos, a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by someone who didn't particularly like granite. 2 bodyguards moved to intercept Eleanor before she could get close. That's far enough, China doll, one of them growled. You're in the wrong neighborhood. I need to speak with Martha. Big Martha doesn't talk to your kind. Tell her it's about Victoria Reyes. Tell her I know what Victoria's planning to do after I'm dead. The bodyguard hesitated. She glanced back at Big Martha, who had noticed the commotion and was watching with interest. Let her through, Big Martha called out. Her voice was surprisingly high-pitched for someone her size. I want to hear what the ninja grandma has to say. The bodyguards parted reluctantly. Eleanor walked forward until she stood directly in front of Big Martha's chair. Every eye in the common area was fixed on her. You've got guts, old woman, Big Martha said. I'll give you that. Walking into my house like you belong here. I don't have time for pleasantries. Victoria is going to betray you. Big Martha's expression didn't change. Is that so? The territory she promised you, the East Yard, she's already cut a deal with Las Diablas to give it to them instead. Again, just like last year, she's using you to do her dirty work, and when it's done, you'll get nothing. And you know this how... Because that's what Victoria does. She makes promises she never intends to keep. She uses people and throws them away. Ask yourself this. In all the years you've known her, has Victoria Reyes ever done anything that didn't benefit Victoria Reyes? Big Martha was quiet for a long moment. Eleanor could feel the tension in the room like a physical pressure against her skin. One wrong word and these women would tear her apart. Let's say I believe you, Big Martha said finally. What's in it for you? I want you to withdraw from Victoria's alliance. Don't participate in tomorrow's attack. And why would I do that? Because after I deal with Victoria, someone's going to need to fill the power vacuum in Cell Block C. Someone who's been waiting for revenge. Someone who's strong enough to take what she's owed. Eleanor paused. That could be you. Or you could spend your resources fighting me and walk away with nothing while Las Diablas laughs at you. Big Martha's eyes narrowed. You really think you can beat 60 women? I think I can beat Victoria. The rest will scatter when their leader falls. You're either very confident or very stupid. I'm 68 years old. I've run out of time for stupidity. Eleanor held Big Martha's gaze without flinching. Think about it. That's all I ask. Think about who's really your enemy here, and ask yourself if Victoria Reyes has ever given you any reason to trust her. She turned and walked away before Big Martha could respond. The walk back to C Block felt longer than before. Eleanor's mind raced through possibilities and contingencies. Big Martha might listen or might not. The alliance might fracture or might hold. Victoria might attack tomorrow, or might move up the timeline even further. Too many variables. Too many unknowns. And somewhere in Sacramento, her daughter Jennifer was going about her daily life completely unaware that dangerous people might be watching her. Eleanor needed to make a phone call. The prison phone bank was crowded during afternoon recreation. Women lined up to spend their precious minutes connecting with the outside world. Mothers called children. Wives called husbands. Daughters called the families who had given up on them. Eleanor waited in line for 30 minutes. When her turn finally came, she dialed Jennifer's number with fingers that wanted to tremble but wouldn't let themselves. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello," Jennifer's voice, warm, professional, the voice of a woman who spent her days healing people and had no idea that violence was closing in on her from all directions. "Jenny, it's Mom." "Mom, oh my God, I've been so worried. Are you okay? The lawyer said you were supposed to be in minimum security, but then they transferred you to that awful place, and I've been trying to get someone to—" "Jenny, listen to me carefully." Something in Eleanor's voice made her daughter go silent. "I need you to do exactly what I say. Don't ask questions. There isn't time." "Mom, you're scaring me." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. But I need you to pack a bag and go stay with your Aunt Susan in Oregon. Today. Right now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't use your credit cards. Take cash only." "What? Why, Mom? What's going on?" "I've made some enemies in here. Bad people. They know about you, and I can't protect you from inside these walls. Please, Jenny, please, just do what I ask." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier, calmer, the voice of the little girl who had grown up watching her mother face down impossible odds. "Is it true what they're saying, that you beat up some gang leader? It's complicated. The news said she runs the most dangerous cell block in California. They're calling you the ninja grandmother." "I've heard." "Are you okay? Really okay?" Eleanor felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them away. "I will be, but only if I know you're safe. Can you do this for me, Jenny?" "Yes, I'll leave tonight. I'll call Aunt Susan from a payphone." "Thank you. I love you more than anything in this world." "I love you too, Mom. Please be careful." "I always am." Eleanor hung up the phone. Her 3 minutes were gone, but at least Jennifer would be safe. At least that much was done. She turned away from the phone bank and found herself face to face with Jade Santos. "Touching conversation," Jade said with a smirk. "Mother-daughter bonding time really warms the heart." "What do you want?" "Victoria sent me. She wants to make sure you know the timeline has changed. Tonight, not tomorrow." Eleanor's blood went cold. "Tonight?" "Surprised, don't be. Victoria knows you've been running around talking to people. Big Martha, Carmen, that librarian who thinks she's clever." Jade stepped closer. "Did you really think we weren't watching Victoria Has Eyes Everywhere?" "Then Victoria knows I'm trying to break up her alliance." "Victoria knows everything, and she's decided not to give you any more time to cause trouble." Jade's grin widened. 8 o'clock, lights out, 60 women coming for you, and anyone stupid enough to stand next to you. Should make for an interesting night. "Tell Victoria I'll be ready." "Oh, I'm sure you will, but it won't matter." Jade turned to walk away, then paused. "One more thing. Victoria wanted me to tell you that she made a phone call about an hour ago to some friends in Sacramento. Said they might pay a visit to your daughter before she has a chance to run." Eleanor's hands curled into fists. "If anyone touches my daughter—" "What? You'll fight us all, kill 60 women with your bare hands? Even you aren't that good, ninja grandma." Jade laughed. "See you at 8. She walked away. Eleanor stood frozen in the corridor. Her mind raced through calculations and possibilities. Jennifer might already be in danger. The attack was coming in hours, not days. Everything she had been building toward was crumbling. She had to warn Jennifer. Had to tell her to run now, not tonight. But the phone bank had a 2-hour wait, and she had already used her daily minutes. "Mrs. Chenepas—" Eleanor turned. Officer Williams stood behind her, expression unreadable. "Warden wants to see you, now." Warden Henderson's office felt different this time. Smaller, more oppressive. The warden sat behind her desk with her hands folded, watching Eleanor with eyes that held something like pity. "I received some interesting phone calls this afternoon," Henderson said. "Your Marine Colonel friend again, 2 senators this time, and the director of the FBI. I didn't ask anyone to call." "No, but your former students are very loyal." Henderson leaned back in her chair. "They're worried about you. They've heard rumors about what Victoria is planning. They want me to put you in protective custody. And will you? I could. One word and you'd be in an isolation cell where no one could touch you. Safe, protected, alive. But that wouldn't solve anything, would it? Victoria would still be running Cell Block C. She would still be hurting people. She would still be proving that power comes from fear and violence. Henderson stood and walked to her window. I've been warden here for 15 years. In that time, I've watched Victoria Reyes build an empire on suffering. I've watched her corrupt my guards, murder inmates, destroy families. And I've been powerless to stop her because she's too smart to leave evidence and too connected to prosecute. Why are you telling me this? Henderson turned to face Eleanor. Because I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to look the other way. Excuse me. Tonight, when Victoria's attack happens, my guards will be delayed. Technical difficulties with the alarm system. A training exercise that runs long. Whatever excuse I can manufacture. You'll have 10 minutes, maybe 15. Whatever happens in that time happens. Eleanor studied the warden carefully. You're giving me permission to fight back. I'm giving you a chance. Use it however you see fit. Henderson's jaw tightened. But understand this. If you lose, if Victoria wins, nothing changes. You'll be dead and she'll be more powerful than ever. The only way this ends is if you destroy her completely. Her reputation, her power, her hold over this prison, everything. And if I succeed, then maybe finally things can change around here. Maybe the women in this prison can stop living in fear. Henderson walked back to her desk and sat down. I've made a lot of compromises in this job, done things I'm not proud of, but I'm tired. Tired of watching monsters like Victoria thrive while good people suffer. If there's even a chance you can end her reign, I'm willing to take it. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you, Warden. Don't thank me, just win. Eleanor walked out of the office with a new understanding of the battlefield. The warden was on her side. The guards would be delayed. She had 10 to 15 minutes of uninterrupted time to face 60 women who wanted her dead. It wasn't much, but it was more than she had an hour ago. She found Maya waiting outside the administration building, pacing nervously. I heard, Maya said. Everyone's heard. Tonight, 8 o'clock. They're saying Victoria's got an army. She does. And you're still going to fight against 60 people. Eleanor took Maya's hands in her own. Listen to me. When it starts, I need you to hide. Find somewhere safe and don't come out until it's over. I can't just hide while you... Yes, you can and you will, because the best way you can help me is by staying alive. Eleanor squeezed Maya's hands gently. I made you a promise. I promised to teach you. But I can't keep that promise if you get yourself killed. Trying to be brave. What if you die? Then you remember what I taught you. Breathing, stillness, finding strength in the calm at the center of the storm. You pass those lessons on to someone else. And someday when you're out of here, you live a life that would make me proud. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to die. Neither do I, Eleanor smiled. So let's hope I don't. The hours that followed moved both too slowly and too quickly. Eleanor returned to her cell and began her preparations. She changed into fresh clothes. She stretched muscles that hadn't fought in anger for over a decade. She practiced the breathing exercises that had sustained her through countless battles. And she thought about Jennifer. Her daughter should be packing now. Should be getting ready to run. Eleanor had done everything she could from inside these walls. The rest was up to Jennifer, up to fate, up to whatever forces governed the universe. At 7:30, Eleanor walked to the cafeteria, not to eat, just to be seen, to show everyone that she wasn't hiding, that she wasn't afraid. The room went silent when she entered. Women from every gang, every faction, every corner of the prison watched her walk to a table and sit down. Alone, calm, waiting. Victoria's army began to gather in the shadows. Eleanor could feel them moving into position. 60 women, maybe more, armed with shanks and razors and hatred. But Eleanor felt something else, too. Something she hadn't expected. Other women were watching. Not Victoria's allies. Regular inmates. Women who had spent years living in fear. Women who had been abused and broken and told they were worthless. They were watching Eleanor sit alone in that cafeteria, and in their eyes was something that hadn't been there before. Hope. Maybe Eleanor would lose tonight. Maybe she would die. But she had already won something more important than survival. She had shown them that it was possible to refuse to be afraid, and that lesson once learned could never be unlearned. The clock on the cafeteria wall ticked toward 8. Victoria's army was in position. The guards had begun their suspiciously timed training exercise. Eleanor closed her eyes at Falsas and found her center, the calm at the heart of the storm, the stillness that no violence could touch. When she opened her eyes, Victoria Reyes was standing in front of her. "Last chance, Grandma," Victoria said. "Get on your knees, apologize. Maybe I let you live." Eleanor rose to her feet. She was so much smaller than Victoria, so much older, so much more fragile, but when she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of that room. "No." Victoria's eyes went cold. "Then you die." She raised her hand, and 60 women moved as one. The first attacker came from Eleanor's left. A heavy-set woman with a shaved head and a shank made from a sharpened toothbrush. She swung wildly, aiming for Eleanor's throat. Eleanor wasn't there. She had shifted 2 inches to her right, just enough for the blade to slice through empty air. Her palm connected with the attacker's wrist, a precise strike that sent the shank clattering across the floor. Before the woman could react, Eleanor's elbow found her solar plexus. She doubled over, gasping, and Eleanor guided her fall into the path of 2 more attackers rushing from behind. 3 down in 4 seconds. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Women screamed. Tables overturned. Victoria's army surged forward like a wave, but Eleanor was no longer where they expected her to be. She moved through them like water through stones. Every strike was precise. Every movement economical. She didn't waste energy on unnecessary force. She didn't allow anger to cloud her judgment. She simply flowed. A woman with teardrops tattooed on her cheek lunged with a razor blade. Eleanor caught her wrist twisted and used her own momentum to throw her into a group of 3 others. They went down in a tangle of limbs. Another attacker swung a sock filled with something heavy, probably bars of soap. Eleanor ducked and stepped inside the swing's arc and delivered a palm strike to the woman's chin. Not hard enough to cause permanent damage, just hard enough to reset her brain. She crumpled. 8 down, 52 to go. Victoria watched from the edge of the chaos, her eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. 60 women against 1 elderly inmate should have been over in seconds. Instead, bodies were piling up around Eleanor like fallen leaves. "What are you waiting for?" Victoria screamed at her crew. "She's one old woman, rush her all at once." They tried. 15 women charged Eleanor simultaneously from all directions. There was nowhere to dodge, nowhere to run. The ring of attackers closed around her like a fist. Eleanor dropped to one knee. The first wave of attackers collided with each other above her head, their own momentum becoming their enemy. Eleanor rose through the chaos, her hands and elbows finding pressure points with surgical accuracy. Necks, wrists, the soft spots behind ears. Women dropped around her like puppets whose strings had been cut. But there were too many, too fast. Even Eleanor's decades of training couldn't account for attacks from every direction at once. A fist connected with her ribs. She felt something crack. Pain exploded through her side, but she didn't stop moving. Couldn't stop moving. Stopping meant death. She grabbed the arm that had hit her and used it as leverage to swing into the woman's body, driving her knee into vulnerable flesh. The attacker screamed and went down. Another blow caught Eleanor's shoulder. A third grazed her temple. Blood began to drip down her face. 20 down. 40 to go? And Eleanor was hurt. Maya watched from the kitchen doorway, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Eleanor had told her to hide, had told her to stay safe. But watching the old woman fight alone against impossible odds was tearing her apart. She saw Eleanor take another hit, saw her stumble, saw her recover and keep fighting, but slower now. The damage was accumulating. "Come on," Maya whispered. "Come on, come on, come on." And then something unexpected happened. Big Martha stepped out of the shadows. The leader of the Daughters of Chaos stood at the edge of the cafeteria, arms crossed, watching the battle with calculating eyes. Her crew stood behind her, waiting for orders. Victoria spotted her immediately. "Martha, what are you waiting for? Get in there." Big Martha didn't move. "Martha, we had a deal." "We did," Big Martha said calmly, "but deals can change." Victoria's face went pale. "What?" "The old woman came to see me today, told me some interesting things, about promises you made, promises you never intended to keep." Big Martha's voice carried across the cafeteria, cutting through the noise of the fight. "The East Yard, Victoria. You promised it to me, twice, and twice you gave it to someone else." "That's a lie. She's lying to turn you against me. Maybe, but I've known you for 15 years, and I've known her for 1 day, and you know what? I trust her more." Big Martha turned to her crew. "Daughters, stand down. This isn't our fight." 20 women stepped back from the battle, just like that. Victoria's army had just lost a third of its strength. Eleanor felt the pressure ease slightly. She used the moment to catch her breath, her broken ribs screaming with every inhale, but she was still standing, still fighting. "You're making a mistake," Victoria snarled at Big Martha. "When I'm done with her, I'm coming for you." "You're welcome to try." Big Martha smiled coldly. "But you might be busy for a while." The remaining attackers hesitated. They had seen what Eleanor could do. They had watched 30 of their allies go down in less than 2 minutes. And now the Daughters of Chaos had defected. Fear began to creep into their eyes. "Don't just stand there," Victoria screamed. Kill her now." The attack resumed, but something had changed. The attackers were more cautious now, less coordinated. They no longer believed victory was inevitable. Eleanor pressed the advantage. She moved through them with renewed energy, ignoring the pain in her ribs, ignoring the blood dripping from her temple. Every strike was a message. Every fallen attacker was a statement. I will not break, I will not bend, I will not stop. Jade Santos pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. She had a proper knife, not a shank. Something metal and sharp that glinted in the fluorescent light. "I'm going to gut you like a fish old woman." Eleanor turned to face her. "Then come." Jade attacked with skill that the others had lacked. She knew how to handle a blade, how to feint, how to create openings. This wasn't random violence. This was training. Eleanor blocked the first slash with her forearm, accepting the cut to prevent a deeper wound. Blood welled from the gash, but she didn't flinch. Jade's eyes widened. "What the hell are you—" "I'm a teacher." Eleanor grabbed Jade's knife hand and twisted. The blade fell. "And you're expelled." Her palm strike caught Jade directly in the sternum, the same technique she had used on Victoria in their first encounter. The Iron Lotus breath. Jade's eyes rolled back and she collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. 35 down, 25 to go, but Eleanor was slowing. The cuts on her arms were bleeding freely. Her broken rib made every breath agony. Her 68-year-old body was reaching its limits, and Victoria knew it. The gang leader pushed through her remaining troops, a cruel smile spreading across her face. "Look at you. You're barely standing. All that training, all that skill, and you're still just an old woman." Eleanor straightened despite the pain. "Old women have survived worse than you." "Maybe, but not tonight." Victoria pulled out a knife of her own, longer than Jade's, sharper. "I'm going to do this myself. I want to see the light leave your eyes." The remaining attackers formed a circle around them. This was it, the final confrontation. Everything had been building to this moment. Victoria lunged. Eleanor sidestepped, but slower than before. The blade caught her arm, adding another cut to her collection. She countered with an elbow strike that Victoria partially blocked. They separated, circled each other. Two women from different worlds fighting for everything they believed in. "You know what I don't understand," Victoria said, her voice calm now, almost conversational. "You could have avoided all of this, could have served your time in peace, gone home to your cats and your garden and your daughter, but you had to be a hero." "I was never trying to be a hero." "Then what? What was so important that you die for it?" Eleanor's eyes met Victoria's. "The same thing you've forgotten, that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, even in a place like this." "Dignity," Victoria laughed. "Dignity is for people who can afford it. In here, there's only power. You take what you can and you hold it as long as you can. That's the only truth that matters." "You're wrong." "Am I?" Victoria gestured at the women around them. "Look at them. They follow me because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. That's power. That's reality. Your philosophy means nothing when you're bleeding on the floor." "Then let me show you what philosophy means." Eleanor attacked, not defensively this time, not reactively. She went on the offense with everything she had left, pouring 45 years of training into a final surge of controlled violence. Victoria was unprepared for the ferocity. She had expected the old woman to be finished, exhausted, ready to fall. Instead, she found herself retreating under a barrage of strikes that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Eleanor's palm found Victoria's wrist, numbing her grip on the knife. Her knee connected with Victoria's thigh, dead-legging her. Her elbow caught Victoria's chin, snapping her head back. But Victoria was younger, stronger, less damaged. She absorbed the punishment and kept fighting. Her fist caught Eleanor's broken rib. White-hot agony exploded through Eleanor's body. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. For a single terrible moment, the pain was everything. Victoria saw the opening and took it. Her hands closed around Eleanor's throat. "I've got you now," Victoria hissed, squeezing. "How does it feel, Grandma? How does it feel to know that you lost?" Eleanor's vision began to blur. She clawed at Victoria's hands, but her strength was fading. The edges of the world were going dark. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. And then she heard Maya scream, "No!" The young woman burst out of the kitchen, running toward the circle of fighters with no weapon and no plan, just raw desperation and the need to do something, anything, to save the woman who had believed in her. "Maya, no!" Eleanor tried to call out, but Victoria's hands were still crushing her throat. Two of Victoria's crew intercepted Maya before she could reach the inner circle. They grabbed her arms and forced her to her knees. "Well, well," Victoria said, not releasing her grip on Eleanor's throat. "Look who decided to join the party." "Let her go, Maya screamed. "Please, she's just an old woman. Let her go." "Old woman," Victoria laughed. "This old woman has caused me more trouble than anyone in 15 years, but I appreciate your concern." She squeezed tighter. "You can watch her die. Then it's your turn." Eleanor's lungs were burning. Her vision was nearly gone, but somewhere through the darkness she could hear Maya crying. Could hear the young woman who had trusted her, believed in her, begging for mercy that would never come. And something inside Eleanor snapped. Not broke. Snapped. The way a coiled spring snaps when released. Her hands stopped clawing at Victoria's grip. Instead, they found Victoria's arms. Found the pressure points she had been too weak to target before. Found the nerve clusters that would cause maximum pain with minimum force. Victoria screamed. Her hands released Eleanor's throat involuntarily as agony shot through her arms. Eleanor sucked in air-blessed air and didn't waste a single second. She grabbed Victoria's head with both hands and brought it down to meet her rising knee. The impact made a sound like a watermelon hitting concrete. Victoria staggered backward, blood streaming from her nose. "You threatened my daughter," Eleanor said, her voice raw from the strangling. "You threatened this girl who has never done anything to you. You've spent 15 years hurting people who couldn't fight back." She advanced on Victoria, who was stumbling, barely conscious. "But I can fight back." Another strike. Victoria's legs buckled. "And I will not stop." Another strike. Victoria fell to her knees. "Until you understand?" Eleanor grabbed Victoria by the collar and hauled her up until their faces were inches apart. The gang leader's eyes were unfocused. Blood covered her face. She was beaten, broken, done. "This ends now," Eleanor said. "Your reign, your empire, your hold over these women. It ends now." She let Victoria drop to the floor. The cafeteria was silent. The remaining attackers had stopped fighting. They stared at their fallen leader with a mixture of shock and something else, something that might have been relief. Eleanor turned to face them. Her body was a map of pain. Blood dripped from half a dozen wounds. Her broken rib made every breath torture. She could barely stand, but she stood. "Anyone else?" she asked. No one moved. "Anyone else want to try?" One by one, the remaining attackers lowered their weapons, stepped back. Some of them dropped to sit on the floor, suddenly exhausted by everything that had happened. Others simply walked away, melting into the shadows like they had never been there. It was over. Eleanor took one step toward Maya, then another. Her legs were shaking. Her vision was swimming. But she had to reach the young woman, had to make sure she was okay. Maya. The guards holding Maya had released her when Victoria fell. She was on her feet now, tears streaming down her face, running toward Eleanor. "You did it," Maya sobbed. "You actually did it." "We did it." Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. "You gave me something to fight for." She collapsed into Maya's arms. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the sound of approaching sirens and Maya's voice saying, "Someone help! She needs help! Someone please!" And then there was nothing. Eleanor woke in the prison infirmary, white ceiling, beeping machines, the sharp smell of antiseptic. She tried to move and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. Her ribs were wrapped tightly in bandages. Her arms were covered in stitches. "Don't move." The voice belonged to Warden Henderson. She sat in a chair beside Eleanor's bed, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "You've got 3 broken ribs, a minor concussion, and about 40 stitches holding you together. The doctor says you should be dead." "I've been told that before." Henderson almost smiled. "I imagine you have." She leaned forward. "It's been 3 days. You've been unconscious for 3 days. A lot has happened." Victoria. "In solitary confinement. She'll be transferred to maximum security once she's healed." The evidence we collected from the riot combined with testimony from other inmates is enough to add another 20 years to her sentence. She's done. Eleanor felt something loosen in her chest. And her crew? Scattered. Jade Santos is in protective custody singing like a bird in exchange for a reduced sentence. The others have either joined other gangs or gone independent. Cell Block C doesn't have a leader anymore. Someone will fill the vacuum. Maybe, but it won't be like before. What you did changed things. Henderson's voice softened. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen riots, I've seen murders, I've seen the worst that humanity has to offer, but I've never seen one person change the culture of an entire prison overnight. I didn't change anything. I just showed people that change was possible. Same thing? Henderson stood up. There's someone here to see you. I wouldn't normally allow visitors during medical recovery, but I made an exception. She walked to the door and opened it. Jennifer Chen walked in. Eleanor's daughter looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, elegant, eyes that held the same quiet strength that Eleanor had spent a lifetime cultivating. She was crying before she even reached the bed. Mom? Jenny! Eleanor tried to lift her hand and Jennifer grabbed it, holding on like she would never let go. I got your message. I went to Aunt Susan's. I was so scared. Jennifer's voice broke. They told me you were hurt. They told me you might not wake up. I always wake up. You know that. You fought 60 people. 60. What were you thinking? I was thinking about you, about keeping you safe, about making sure you never had to live in fear. Jennifer wiped her eyes. The FBI arrested 3 people in Sacramento. They were watching my apartment. They had pictures of me, pictures of my hospital. Eleanor felt cold rage settle in her chest. Did they hurt you? No, they arrested them before anything happened. Your friend, that Marine colonel, he sent people to protect me. Good, that's good. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. It was a wet, hiccuping laugh, but it was real. Mom, do you know what they're calling you? It's all over the news, national news. They're calling you the grandmother of Cell Block C. Someone leaked video of the fight, and it's gone viral. 60 million views in 3 days. 60 million. You're famous. Talk shows want to interview you. Netflix called about a documentary. A publisher wants you to write a book. Jennifer squeezed her hand. You're a symbol now. A symbol of standing up against bullies. Of refusing to be afraid. Eleanor closed her eyes. She had never wanted fame. Never wanted attention. She just wanted to serve her time and go home. But maybe this was what the universe had planned for her all along. Maybe this was why she had ended up in Blackwater instead of minimum security. Maybe there were no accidents. There's something else, Jennifer said. The governor called. He's issuing a pardon. You'll be out in a week. Eleanor's eyes snapped open. A pardon. Full pardon. Expungement of all charges. The official reason is humanitarian, but everyone knows it's political. You're a hero. The governor wants to be associated with you. I'm not a hero. Tell that to the millions of people who watched you stand up against impossible odds. Jennifer smiled through her tears. Tell that to all the women in this prison who finally believe that things can change. The days that followed blurred together. Eleanor recovered slowly, her body healing with the stubborn determination that had carried her through 68 years of life. Physical therapy, endless interviews with investigators, visits from inmates who just wanted to see her, to thank her, to touch the legend they had watched being born. Maya came every day. She sat by Eleanor's bed and practiced her breathing exercises while Eleanor watched with quiet pride. I've been thinking, Maya said on the 5th day, about what I want to do when I get out. And I want to teach, like you. I want to help people find their strength. Eleanor felt tears prick at her eyes. That's the greatest gift you could give me. Will you help me when you're out and I'm out? Will you teach me how to teach? Yes, every day for as long as I'm able. Carmen came on the 6th day. The young Latina stood awkwardly in the doorway, uncertain if she was welcome. Come in, Eleanor said. Don't hover. Carmen approached the bed. I heard you're getting out. So they tell me. Must be nice. There was no bitterness in Carmen's voice, just acceptance. Las Diablas are talking about you. They're saying you're the toughest person they've ever seen. Coming from them, that means something. I'm not tough, I'm just stubborn. Same thing. Carmen hesitated. I wanted to thank you for what you did. Victoria killed my cousin and got away with it for 3 years. Now she's going to rot in maximum security for the rest of her life. That's justice. Maybe not the kind I wanted, but justice. Justice rarely looks the way we expect. No, I guess not. Carmen turned to leave, then stopped. Hey, Ninja Grandma. Yes. If I ever get out of here, if I ever have kids, I'm going to tell them about you, about the old woman who taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and standing up anyway. She left before Eleanor could respond. On the 7th day, they came to release her. Eleanor walked out of the infirmary under her own power, though slowly. Her ribs were still healing. Her cuts were still tender. But she was alive. The warden met her at the final checkpoint. Ready? I think so. The press is waiting outside, hundreds of them. The governor's office arranged a car, but you'll have to walk through the gauntlet. I've faced worse gauntlets. Henderson smiled. I imagine you have. She handed Eleanor an envelope. This came for you this morning, from the inmates of Cell Block C. Eleanor opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn card signed by dozens of women. Some she recognized, most she didn't, but the message was simple. Thank you for teaching us to breathe. Eleanor felt tears stream down her face. She didn't try to stop them. Are you okay? Yes? She wiped her eyes. I'm okay. The doors opened and Eleanor Chen walked out into the sunlight. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. A crowd of supporters cheered and held signs that read "Free the Grandmother," even though she was already free. But Eleanor barely noticed any of it. She was looking at Jennifer, who stood at the bottom of the stairs with her arms open. Welcome home, Mom. Eleanor embraced her daughter and held on tight. Behind her, somewhere in the depths of Blackwater Prison, Maya Thompson was practicing her breathing exercises. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out through the mouth for 6. Finding her center. Finding her strength. Finding the calm at the heart of the storm. And in Sacramento, 60 million people watched a video of an old woman standing alone against impossible odds, and something inside them shifted. Maybe things could change. Maybe one person could make a difference. Maybe being brave wasn't about not being afraid. Maybe it was about standing up anyway. Eleanor Chen had spent her whole life teaching that lesson, and now, finally, the whole world was ready to learn. 3 months had passed since Eleanor walked out of Blackwater Prison. 3 months of interviews and book deals and speaking engagements that she politely declined. 3 months of physical therapy and healing and trying to remember what normal life felt like. But normal kept slipping through her fingers like sand. Eleanor sat in her garden in Sacramento, surrounded by the roses she had planted 20 years ago. Hugo the orange cat lay in her lap purring contentedly. Penelope the black cat watched from the windowsill, too dignified to show affection openly. Jennifer had wanted her to move in, but Eleanor refused. She needed her own space, her own routines, her own quiet mornings of breathing exercises and meditation. The phone rang. Eleanor let it go to voicemail. Another reporter? Another producer? Another person who wanted a piece of the grandmother of Cell Block C. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to tend her garden and teach her students and live whatever years she had left in peace. But peace, it seemed, had other plans. The doorbell rang. Eleanor gently moved Hugo from her lap and walked to the door. Through the peephole, she saw a young woman she didn't recognize. Hispanic, maybe 25. Professional clothes, nervous energy. She opened the door. Mrs. Chen? Yes. My name is Sofia Martinez. I think you knew my mother, Maria Santos. She died in Blackwater Prison 3 years ago. Eleanor felt something cold settle in her chest. Carmen's cousin. The woman Victoria had killed and made it look like suicide. The mother who left behind a little girl named Sophia. I know who your mother was. Please come in. Sophia followed Eleanor into the living room and sat on the edge of a worn armchair. Her hands were shaking. I'm sorry to show up without calling. I didn't know if you'd talk to me. Why wouldn't I? Because of what I'm about to ask. Sophia took a deep breath. I need your help, Mrs. Chen. I need you to come back to Blackwater. Eleanor's heart skipped. Come back? Why? Because Victoria Reyes escaped 2 days ago, and she's looking for you. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Eleanor felt her breathing change, her body automatically shifting into the patterns she had practiced for 50 years. How? They're not sure. Maximum security, 24-hour surveillance. But somehow she got out. 3 guards are dead. 2 more are missing. Sophia's voice cracked. The FBI thinks she had help from inside, someone high up. And why do you need me to go back to Blackwater? Because that's where she's going. The FBI intercepted communications. Victoria's not just running. She's planning something. Something big. Something involving the women still inside. Eleanor thought about Maya, about Carmen, about all the women who had looked at her with hope when she walked out those doors. What kind of something? They don't know exactly, but Victoria's been reaching out to her old contacts, rebuilding her network. The FBI thinks she's planning some kind of revenge. Against the prison, against the women who testified against her, against you. If she's looking for me, why would I go to Blackwater? Shouldn't I stay as far away as possible? Sophia leaned forward. Because the FBI can't protect those women. Not really. They can put extra guards on the prison, but Victoria knows every inch of that place. She knows every corrupt officer, every hidden passage, every weakness in the system. If she wants to hurt people inside Blackwater, she will. And you think I can stop her? I think you're the only one who can. Sophia's eyes met Eleanor's. You beat her once. You broke her empire. You showed everyone that she could be defeated. That's why she's coming back. Not just for revenge. To prove that you were wrong. That fear is the only thing that matters. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her garden, her cats, her peaceful retirement that had barely begun. Then she thought about Maya still serving 3 more years. About Carmen, who had risked everything to help her. About all the women whose only hope had been a 68-year-old martial arts instructor who refused to back down. When do we leave? The drive to Blackwater took 4 hours. Sophia drove while Eleanor sat in the passenger seat watching the California landscape roll by. Tell me about your mother, Eleanor said. Sophia's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She was a good person, made some bad choices, but who hasn't? She got caught up with the wrong crowd, did some things she wasn't proud of, but she was trying to turn her life around. She had plans. When she got out, she was going to open a bakery. She made the best empanadas you ever tasted. How did she end up crossing Victoria? She saw something she wasn't supposed to see, a drug deal in the laundry room, Victoria's people moving product right under the guards' noses. Mom told the wrong person. Word got back to Victoria. Sophia's voice went flat. 3 days later, they found her hanging in her cell. Official ruling was suicide. Everyone knew it wasn't. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be what you were before. Be the woman who brought Victoria down. Sophia glanced at Eleanor. Can you do that? Can you do it again? Eleanor looked at her hands. They were weathered now, scarred from her last fight. The hands of an old woman who had already pushed her body beyond its limits. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm going to try. Blackwater Prison looked exactly as Eleanor remembered. Gray concrete. Razor wire. The oppressive weight of suffering that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. But something was different. She could feel it as soon as she stepped out of the car. The air was thick with tension. Fear. The kind of fear she had worked so hard to dispel. Warden Henderson met them at the gate. She looked like she had aged 10 years in 3 months. Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming. Tell me everything. They walked through familiar corridors toward the warden's office. Inmates stopped and stared as Eleanor passed. Some recognized her. Others had only heard the stories, but all of them watched with a mixture of hope and terror. Victoria escaped 48 hours ago, Henderson said. Killed 3 guards on her way out. 2 more are unaccounted for, presumed to be working with her. How did she get out of maximum security? We're still piecing that together, but we found evidence of a tunnel. Professional work. Took months to dig. Someone on the outside was coordinating. Who? Henderson's jaw tightened. We think it was Jade Santos. Eleanor stopped walking. Jade, she was in protective custody. She testified against Victoria. She was released 2 months ago. Reduced sentence for cooperation. The FBI lost track of her 3 weeks later. Henderson shook her head. It was a setup, the whole thing. Jade's testimony, her cooperation, all of it. Just a way to get out and help Victoria escape. So Victoria's had this plan since before I left. Since before you beat her. Maybe since before you even arrived. Henderson's voice was heavy with exhaustion. We've underestimated her, Mrs. Chen. All of us. We thought breaking her empire would break her, but it just made her more dangerous. They reached the warden's office. Henderson closed the door behind them and activated something on her desk. A small light turned green. Scrambler, in case anyone's listening. She sat down heavily. Victoria's been communicating with people inside the prison. We've intercepted some of the messages, but not all. What we've pieced together is terrifying. Tell me. She's planning a riot, not like the one you stopped. Bigger. She's got allies in every cell block now. Women who are loyal to her. women who are afraid of her, women who just want to watch the world burn. Henderson pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Our intelligence suggests she's planning to storm the prison during the chaos. She's got weapons being smuggled in, military-grade stuff, enough to arm a small army. Eleanor opened the folder. Photos of assault rifles, explosives, body armor. Her stomach turned. This isn't revenge? This is war. We've tried to evacuate the prison, but there's nowhere to put them. We've tried to bring in federal support, but it takes time. Time we don't have. Henderson leaned forward. Victoria's attack is coming in the next 24 hours. We're sure of that much. And when it happens, a lot of people are going to die. Unless someone stops it from the inside. Someone Victoria doesn't expect. Someone who's already beaten her once. Henderson's eyes met Eleanor's. I know what I'm asking. I know you've already given more than anyone could expect, but you're the only person who might be able to do this. Eleanor thought about everything she had survived, everything she had sacrificed, everything she had left behind. Then she thought about Maya, about her promise to teach, about the young woman who was counting the days until her release, dreaming of a future that might never come. What do you need me to do? Go back in, as an inmate. Find Victoria's allies inside. Disrupt their plans. When Victoria makes her move, make sure her inside support isn't there. You want me to go undercover, in a prison where everyone knows my face. I want you to do what you do best. Inspire people. Show them there's another way. Turn Victoria's army against her before she can use them. Eleanor closed the folder. How long do I have? The attack is planned for tomorrow night. 24 hours. That's not enough time. It's all we have. Henderson stood and walked to the window. I've been warden here for 15 years. I've watched this prison chew up and spit out thousands of women. But in all that time, I've never seen anyone like you. You changed something when you were here. Something fundamental. The women in this prison remember what you taught them. If anyone can reach them again, it's you. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. 24 hours. To find Victoria's allies is to turn them. To stop an army that had been building for months. Impossible. But then again, people had said the same thing about one old woman fighting 60 attackers. I'll need to talk to Maya first, and Carmen if she's still here. Maya's in cell block C. Carmen was transferred to minimum security last month. Henderson turned from the window. I'll have them brought to you. No, I'll go to them. If I'm going back in, I might as well start now. Walking back into cell block C felt like stepping into a dream. The same concrete walls, the same fluorescent lights, the same heavy air, thick with desperation and fear. But the fear was different now, sharper, more immediate. Women pressed against their cell bars as Eleanor passed. Some called out her name. Others just stared with wide eyes. The grandmother of cell block C had returned. But why Maya was waiting in their old cell? When she saw Eleanor, her face crumpled. You came back. I had to. They embraced. Maya was thinner than Eleanor remembered. There were new lines around her eyes, new tension in her shoulders. I heard about Victoria, Maya whispered. Everyone's heard. The whole prison is terrified. People are choosing sides, deciding who to stand with when it all goes down. And what have you decided? Maya pulled back and looked at Eleanor with fierce determination. I decided 3 months ago, when you taught me to breathe, when you showed me that I didn't have to be afraid. Her voice strengthened. I'm with you. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Eleanor felt pride swell in her chest. This wasn't the frightened young woman she had met 3 months ago. This was someone new, someone stronger. Tell me who's with Victoria, who's been organizing inside. There's a woman named Snake. She was part of Victoria's original crew. Been recruiting hard since you left. Got maybe 30 women committed. Another 50 who might join if things look like they're going Victoria's way. 80 women. More than before. And this time, they're not just angry, they're armed. I've seen them hiding weapons, shanks, pipes. Someone even smuggled in a gun. Eleanor's blood went cold. A gun inside the prison. One of the corrupt guards, the one who disappeared. He brought it in before he left. Victoria's people have been passing it around, making sure everyone knows it exists. Maya's voice dropped. It changes things. Before people thought they had a chance against shanks and fists. But a gun, that's different. Do you know where the gun is? Snake has it. She sleeps with it under her pillow. Eleanor filed away the information. 1 gun, 1 leader. Remove both, and Victoria's inside army might fall apart before she even arrived. I need to talk to Snake. Maya grabbed her arm. That's crazy. She'll kill you on sight. Maybe, but I need to understand what we're dealing with. What Victoria promised these women. What's driving them? Fear. That's what's driving them. Fear and desperation and the belief that Victoria's the winning side. Then I need to show them another option. Eleanor found Snake in the recreation yard. The wiry woman with the teardrop tattoos was holding court among a group of hardened inmates. When she saw Eleanor approaching, her hand moved toward her waistband. Well, the legendary ninja grandma, I heard you were back. News travels fast. In here, always. Snake's eyes were cold. What do you want? To talk. About what? About Victoria, about what she's promised you, about whether you're really prepared to die for her. Snake laughed. It was an ugly sound. Die for her, lady. I'm not dying for anyone. I'm surviving. That's what we all do in here. You think siding with Victoria is surviving? She's going to lead you into a slaughter. She's going to lead us to freedom. When this is over, the ones who stood with her walk out of here. The ones who didn't. Snake drew a finger across her throat. And you believe her after everything she's done, after all the promises she's broken. I believe she's the meanest, craziest bitch in this state. And when everything goes to hell, I'd rather be standing next to her than in front of her. Eleanor studied Snake carefully. Behind the bravado, she saw something else. Fear. The same fear that had driven Victoria's army before. The fear of being on the wrong side when the violence started. What if there was another option? There isn't. There's always another option. Eleanor took a step closer. Snake's hand tightened on whatever was in her waistband. I've spent my whole life teaching people that they have choices, that they don't have to be victims, that they don't have to be tools for someone else's agenda. Pretty words, but words don't stop bullets. No, but courage does. Unity does. 60 women standing together because they believe in something more than fear. Snake's eyes narrowed. You think you can pull that trick again? You think you can inspire your way out of this? I think people are tired of being afraid, tired of living under Victoria's shadow, tired of choosing between bad and worse. Eleanor's voice softened. I think you're tired too, Snake. I think you're hoping someone will give you a reason to walk away from this. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Eleanor could feel the tension radiating from Snake's body, the internal war between fear and hope. Then Snake laughed again. But this time it sounded different. Hollower. You know what your problem is, Grandma. You think everyone's got some good buried deep inside them, some spark that just needs the right motivation. She shook her head. Maybe that's true for some people, but not me. I've been in this life too long, done too many things. There's nothing inside me but survival instinct. Geheim, I don't believe that. Believe what you want, but when Victoria comes through those gates tomorrow night, I'm going to be standing with her, and if you're smart, you'll find a way out before that happens. Snake turned and walked away. Her crew followed. Eleanor watched them go, her mind racing through possibilities. 24 hours, 80 potential enemies, 1 gun, 1 chance. Maya appeared at her side. That went well? Better than I expected, actually. Better she basically threatened to kill you. She also didn't kill me when she had the chance, and she told me when Victoria's coming, tomorrow night. Eleanor's eyes tracked Snake across the yard. She's not as committed as she wants everyone to believe. She's scared. They're all scared. So what do? We give them something to believe in, something stronger than fear. Eleanor turned to Maya. Gather everyone you trust, everyone who stood with me before, everyone who's been waiting for another chance. That's maybe 20 women against 80. 20 is enough, if they're the right 20. The hours that followed were a blur of whispered conversations and careful planning. Eleanor moved through the prison like a ghost speaking to women she had helped. Before, women she had inspired, women who had watched her fight Victoria and wondered if they could find that same courage in themselves. Not everyone agreed to help. Some were too scared. Others didn't trust that Eleanor could win twice. But enough said yes. Enough remembered what it felt like to stand up instead of backing down. By midnight, Eleanor had assembled her army. 23 women, not fighters, not warriors, just ordinary people who were tired of living in fear. She gathered them in the library, the same place she had sought refuge months ago. Mrs. Patterson was there too, her kind eyes filled with worry. Tomorrow night, Eleanor said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, Victoria's coming. She's got weapons, she's got allies, she's got every advantage you can imagine. The women shifted nervously. Some looked like they were already regretting their decision. But she doesn't have something we have. She doesn't have the truth. The truth that fear is a choice. The truth that bullies only win when we let them. The truth that one person standing up can inspire 100 others to do the same. Maya stepped forward. I was terrified when I first came to this prison. I let Victoria's people push me around because I thought I had no choice. Then I met Eleanor. She taught me to breathe, taught me that I was stronger than I knew. Her voice strengthened. Tomorrow I'm going to stand with her, not because I'm not scared, because I am, but because being scared doesn't mean you have to give up. Other women began to speak, sharing their stories, their fears, their hopes, building something that Victoria's army of terror could never match. Connection, trust, belief. Eleanor watched them with quiet pride. This was what she had spent her life building. Not fighters. Teachers. Women who would carry the lessons forward long after she was gone. As dawn approached, Eleanor slipped away from the group. She found a quiet corner and began her breathing exercises. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out through the mouth for 6. Finding her center, finding her strength, finding the calm at the heart of the coming storm. In a few hours, Victoria would attack. Everything Eleanor had built would be tested. Lives would hang in the balance, and an old woman would once again face impossible odds. But this time, she wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. The explosion ripped through the east wall at exactly 9:47 p.m. Eleanor felt the shockwave before she heard it. The ground shook beneath her feet. Alarms screamed to life. Emergency lights bathed everything in pulsing red. Victoria had arrived. Everyone to positions, Eleanor shouted over the chaos. Her 23 volunteers scattered through the prison, each knowing exactly where they needed to be. Maya grabbed Eleanor's arm. The explosion came from the loading dock. That's where the supply trucks come in. That's where Victoria's weapons are. She's arming her inside people first. What do? We stop them before they can distribute. Eleanor started running toward the loading dock. Find Mrs. Patterson. Get as many civilians into the library as you can. That's the safest place. What about you? I'm going to have a conversation with an old friend. The corridors were pandemonium. Inmates ran in every direction, some fleeing toward safety, others rushing toward the explosion with hungry eyes. Guards tried to maintain order, but were quickly overwhelmed. Eleanor moved through the chaos like water through rocks. Her body remembered the layout. Her mind calculated every possible route, every potential ambush point. She reached the loading dock in under 3 minutes. What she found made her blood freeze. Victoria stood in the center of the wreckage, surrounded by armed women. Real weapons, assault rifles, shotguns, military hardware that had no business being inside a prison. She was handing them out like candy, her face twisted into a smile of pure triumph. Arm up, Victoria shouted. Tonight we take back what's ours. Tonight we show them what happens when they try to break us. 40 women cheered. More were arriving every second. Snake stood at Victoria's right hand, clutching an assault rifle like it was made of gold. Her eyes scanned the crowd, looking for threats, looking for Eleanor. Their eyes met. Snake's grip tightened on her weapon. For a long moment, neither woman moved. Then Snake slowly shook her head. A warning. Stay back. Eleanor ignored it. She stepped out of the shadows and walked directly toward Victoria. The crowd parted. Weapons swung toward her. Fingers tightened on triggers. Don't shoot, Victoria's voice cut through the tension. I want this one alive. Eleanor stopped 10 feet from her enemy. Victoria looked different than before. Harder. More desperate. 3 months of planning and festering hatred had carved themselves into her face. Ninja Grandma, Victoria said, savoring the words. I was hoping you'd show up. Victoria. You know I've thought about you every single day since they put me in that hole. Every single day I imagined this moment. Imagined what I'd do when I finally had you in front of me again. And what did you decide? Victoria's smile widened. I decided to make you watch. Watch me tear down everything you built. Watch me prove that your little philosophy means nothing. Watch me burn this whole place to the ground, with everyone you care about still inside. That's not going to happen. No, look around you. Victoria gestured at her armed followers. I've got 50 soldiers with military weapons. You've got what 20 unarmed inmates who think breathing exercises will save them. I've got something better. What's that? The truth. Eleanor raised her voice so everyone could hear. The truth about what Victoria's really planning. The truth about what happens to all of you when this is over. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Shut her up. Snake raised her rifle. Eleanor didn't flinch. Victoria promised you freedom, Eleanor continued. Promised that the ones who stood with her would walk out of here. But that's a lie. She's not planning to free anyone. She's planning to use you as human shields when the FBI storms this building. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Weapons lowered slightly. That's bullshit, Victoria snarled. Don't listen to her. Is it? Then why did Victoria's escape plan only include one extraction point, one helicopter room for maybe 5 people? Eleanor looked at the armed women surrounding her. I've seen the FBI's intelligence. Victoria's got an exit strategy for herself and her inner circle. The rest of you, you're cannon fodder. Distractions to keep the authorities busy while she disappears. She's lying, Victoria screamed. Kill her now. But no one moved. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Eleanor could see it in their eyes. The calculations, the fear, the dawning realization that they might have been played. Snake lowered her rifle completely. Is it true? Does it matter? Victoria grabbed a shotgun from the woman next to her. I'll do it myself. She raised the weapon toward Eleanor's chest. Victoria. The voice came from behind them. Everyone turned. Sophia Martinez stood in the loading dock entrance, but she wasn't alone. Behind her were 20 FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Victoria Reyes, you're under arrest. Victoria's face contorted with rage. How did they get here so fast? Because I told them exactly when you'd attack, Eleanor said calmly. The explosion, the weapons cache, the helicopter extraction point, I gave them everything. You couldn't have known. Sophia's been working with me since yesterday. Her mother was Maria Santos, the woman you murdered 3 years ago. Eleanor's voice hardened. Did you really think Carmen was the only one who wanted justice? Victoria's grip on the shotgun wavered. Her army was dissolving around her. Women dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Others tried to flee, only to be intercepted by more FBI agents pouring in from every entrance. It's over, Eleanor said. Let it go. Over. Victoria laughed. It was a broken sound, the sound of someone watching their entire world collapse. It's never over. As long as I'm breathing, it's never over. She raised the shotgun. Eleanor moved. 45 years of training compressed into a single moment. Her hand deflected the barrel just as Victoria pulled the trigger. The blast went wide, punching a hole in the concrete wall. Eleanor's palm found Victoria's wrist. Her fingers found the pressure point that would numb the grip. The shotgun clattered to the floor. Victoria swung with her free hand. Eleanor blocked. Countered. Her elbow caught Victoria's chin. Her knee found Victoria's stomach. But Victoria was younger, stronger, fueled by 3 months of hatred. Her fist connected with Eleanor's healing ribs. Pain exploded through the old woman's body. The same ribs she had broken 3 months ago screamed in protest. Eleanor staggered backward. Victoria pressed the attack, raining blows that Eleanor could barely deflect. Each impact sent new waves of agony through her damaged body. You're old, Victoria screamed. You're weak. You're nothing. She grabbed Eleanor by the throat and slammed her against the wall. I'm going to kill you, Victoria hissed. Slowly, I'm going to make it last. Eleanor couldn't breathe. Victoria's hands were like iron around her neck. Her vision was going dark. Her strength was fading. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. And then she heard Maya's voice. Get away from her! Victoria turned just in time to see Maya charging toward her with a metal pipe. The young woman swung with everything she had. Victoria released Eleanor and caught Maya's arm mid-swing. She twisted and Maya cried out in pain, the pipe falling from her grip. The student comes to save the teacher, Victoria laughed. How touching. She threw Maya to the ground and kicked her in the ribs. Maya curled into a ball, gasping. I'll deal with you after I finish with the old woman. But those few seconds had given Eleanor time to recover, time to find her center, time to remember why she was fighting. Not for herself, for Maya, for Carmen, for Sophia, for every woman who had ever been told she was worthless. Eleanor's breathing steadied. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, out through the mouth for 6. Victoria! The gang leader turned back to face her. My students used to ask me what the most important thing in martial arts was. Strength speed technique. Eleanor straightened despite the pain. I always told them the same thing. The most important thing is knowing what you're fighting for. I know what I'm fighting for. Revenge. No, you're fighting because you're empty, because fear and hatred are the only things you have left, because somewhere along the way you forgot how to be human. Shut up, Victoria attacked again. Wild, uncontrolled, driven by emotion rather than strategy. Eleanor didn't try to match her strength. Instead, she redirected, used Victoria's own momentum against her. Every punch that Victoria threw Eleanor guided harmlessly past. Every kick became an opportunity to unbalance. The technique was called flowing water. It was designed for exactly this situation, a smaller, weaker defender against a stronger, angrier attacker. Victoria grew more frustrated with every missed strike. Her movements became sloppier, her breathing ragged. "Stand still," she screamed. "Fight me. I am fighting you. You just can't see it." Eleanor waited for the moment. The opening. It came when Victoria overextended on a wild haymaker. Eleanor stepped inside, the punch her body pressing against Victoria's extended arm. Her hands found the pressure points she had used 3 months ago, the same technique that had dropped Victoria in the cafeteria, the iron lotus breath. But this time Eleanor didn't hold back. Victoria's eyes went wide, her mouth opened in a silent scream. Every muscle in her body locked up as the technique disrupted the signals between her brain and her limbs. She collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Eleanor stood over her fallen enemy, breathing hard. Her ribs were on fire. Her throat was bruised, but she was still standing. "It's over," she said quietly. "It's finally over." FBI agents rushed forward to secure Victoria. Medical personnel attended to the injured. The armed inmates who had surrendered were being processed and led away. Eleanor walked to where Maya lay on the ground. She knelt down, ignoring the screaming pain in her body. "Are you okay?" Maya looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. "You did it. You actually did it again?" "We did it. You gave me time to recover. You saved my life." "I just swung a pipe. You did all the real work." "There's no such thing as small actions. Everything matters. Everyone matters." Eleanor helped Maya to her feet, "Including you." They held each other for a long moment, teacher and student, survivor and survivor. Sophia approached them, her FBI credentials hanging around her neck. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling. "It's done," she said. "Victoria's in custody. Her entire network is being rounded up as we speak. The weapons are secured. It's really done." "Thank you," Eleanor said, "for everything." "Thank you. My mother can finally rest now." Sophia wiped her eyes. "The FBI director wants to talk to you. Something about a medal, a presidential commendation, the works." "I don't want medals." "I told him you'd say that. He said to tell you that sometimes symbols matter. Sometimes people need heroes." "I'm not a hero. I'm just a teacher who got tired of watching bullies win." Sophia smiled. "That's exactly what heroes say." The aftermath took weeks to sort out. Victoria was charged with murder, attempted murder, escape terrorism, and a dozen other crimes. She would spend the rest of her life in a maximum security facility designed for the most dangerous criminals in the country. Jade Santos was captured trying to cross the border into Mexico. Her testimony helped convict 3 more members of Victoria's network. Snake turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told the FBI everything she knew about prison corruption, drug trafficking, and Victoria's operations. Big Martha and the Daughters of Chaos publicly denounced Victoria and pledged to maintain peace within Blackwater. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And Eleanor Chen went home. This time, she actually made it to her garden. 6 months later, Eleanor stood at the entrance of a converted warehouse in downtown Sacramento. The sign above the door read Iron Lotus Academy Martial Arts and Life Skills. Maya stood beside her wearing the traditional uniform of an assistant instructor. She had been released from prison 2 months early for good behavior and her role in stopping Victoria's attack. "Nervous?" Eleanor asked. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "What if I'm not ready? What if I can't teach the way you do?" "You're ready. You've been ready since the moment you picked up that pipe." "That was just instinct." "Instinct is just training you don't remember learning." Eleanor squeezed Maya's shoulder. "You're going to be wonderful." The doors opened and students began filing in. Women of all ages, some confident, some nervous, some carrying the invisible weight of trauma and fear. Eleanor recognized some of them. Former inmates she had met during her time at Blackwater. Women who had heard her story and decided to find their own strength. Carmen was there too, wearing civilian clothes and a smile that seemed to finally reach her eyes. She had been released last month and had immediately signed up to volunteer at the academy. "Full house," Carmen said. "Word's gotten around. The grandmother of Cell Block C is teaching again." "I've never liked that name." "Too bad, it's stuck." Carmen looked around at the students gathering on the training floor. You know, 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd spent the rest of my days behind bars just surviving. Then you showed up and changed everything. I didn't change anything. I just reminded people of what they already knew. Same thing. Carmen's voice softened. My cousin Maria would have loved this. She always believed things could get better. Even when everything was falling apart, she believed. Then let's make sure her belief wasn't wasted. Eleanor walked to the center of the training floor. The murmur of conversation faded as everyone turned to look at her. Welcome, Eleanor said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Some of you know who I am. Some of you have heard stories. Some of you are here because you're curious about the old lady who beat up a gang leader. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm not special. I'm not superhuman. I'm not anything that you can't become. Eleanor began to walk slowly among the students. I'm just someone who learned a long time ago that fear is a choice. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite it. She stopped in front of a young woman who couldn't have been older than 20. The woman was trembling slightly, her eyes darting around the room like she expected to be attacked at any moment. What's your name? Jessica. Why are you here, Jessica? The young woman swallowed hard. Because I'm tired of being scared all the time. Tired of feeling helpless. Tired of waiting for someone else to save me. Then you've already taken the first step. Eleanor smiled. The techniques I'm going to teach you are important. The breathing, the movement, the self-defense, all of it matters. But the most important thing you'll learn here isn't how to fight. It's how to stand. How to look at whatever life throws at you and say, I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. Eleanor returned to the center of the floor. Maya joined her standing tall in her instructor's uniform. Today we begin with breathing. It sounds simple. It sounds like nothing. But breath is the foundation of everything. Control your breath, and you control your fear. Control your fear, and you control your life. She demonstrated the pattern she had taught to Maya, to the women of Blackwater, to thousands of students over 45 years. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, out through the mouth for 6, again, until it becomes as natural as your heartbeat. 50 women breathed together. The sound filled the warehouse like a prayer. Eleanor closed her eyes and let herself feel the moment, the connection, the hope. Everything she had fought for, everything she had sacrificed had led to this. She thought about Victoria rotting in a cell designed to break the most hardened criminals. She thought about Maria Santos, who had died believing things could get better. She thought about Jennifer, her daughter, who had flown back to Sacramento to watch her mother's academy open. She thought about all the women still trapped in prisons across the country, still living in fear, still waiting for someone to show them another way. Maybe she couldn't save all of them, but she could save some. And those women would save others. And those others would save still more. That was how change happened. Not through grand gestures or heroic battles, but through small acts of courage that rippled outward like stones thrown into a pond. Mrs. Chen. Eleanor opened her eyes. One of the students, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a scar across her cheek, had raised her hand. Yes. I heard what you did at Blackwater, both times. I heard you took on dozens of armed women and won. I heard you never gave up no matter how bad things got. The woman's voice trembled. How did you find the strength? Eleanor was quiet for a moment. She thought about her answer carefully. I found the strength in the same place you'll find yours, she said finally. In the people who needed me. In the students who looked to me for hope. In the belief that every single person has value even when the world tells them they don't. She looked around the room, meeting every pair of eye. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not defined by the worst things that have happened to you. You are defined by what you choose to do next. Eleanor's voice strengthened. And what you do next is stand, breathe, believe. 50 women stood a little taller. Maya stepped forward. Let's begin, she said, her voice steady and sure. Follow my lead. Eleanor watched her former student take charge, watched the young woman who had been too scared to look anyone in the eye become a teacher herself. This was her legacy, not medals or commendations or news stories. This was what mattered, the lives she had touched, the people she had inspired, the endless chain of courage, passing from generation to generation. Outside, the sun was setting over Sacramento. Golden light streamed through the warehouse windows, painting everything in warm amber. Jennifer appeared at Eleanor's side. She didn't say anything. She just wrapped her arm around her mother's shoulders and held on. I'm proud of you, Mom. I'm proud of you too, Jenny. Think you'll finally slow down now? Take up gardening full-time. Stop fighting gang leaders. Eleanor laughed. I think I've earned a rest, but if someone needs help, if someone's being bullied, if someone's lost their way... She shrugged. I'll be there. Of course you will. Jennifer squeezed her shoulder. That's who you are. That's who we all can be, if we're brave enough to try. They stood together, mother and daughter, watching Maya lead the class through their first breathing exercises, watching Carmen help a nervous student find her stance, watching 50 women take the first steps on a journey that would transform their lives. Eleanor Chen was 68 years old. She had 3 broken ribs that still ached when the weather changed. She had scars on her arms that would never fully fade. She had seen the worst of humanity and refused to let it break her. And she was just getting started. Because some fights never end. Some lessons need to be taught again and again. Some people need to be reminded that they are worthy of love, of respect, of dignity. That was Eleanor's mission, her calling, her gift to the world, and she would keep teaching until her very last breath. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out through the mouth for 6. Find the center. Find the strength. Find the calm at the heart of every storm. Because that was where true power lived. And that power belonged to everyone who was brave enough to claim it.